Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Another Monday, another podcast, and another thank you to all the listeners. You have been the key support, and through your comments and support, we are now in the fifth week of the podcast. Thank you so much. Once again, it is my great pleasure in inviting Vani Suryaprakash once again to our podcast. She is an internationally accredited coach and soft skill trainer, along with image consulting as well. We, Riva Coaching, welcome you to our podcast, Vani.
Wonderful. Good day, all. Thank you. Thank you so much, MJ. It's always a great pleasure to come on to this podcast. I'm very happy that there is a platform to discuss and share every important and critical topics for every individual. I appreciate the offer and I always will be very much happy to be part of this initiative. Thank you once again.
Great to hear. And once again, you have been the best possible support that we could have gotten in getting this podcast up and running. Thank you once again. So let us now do a quick time travel to last week and recap what did we listen to. We started off a new topic, self-victimization at personal life. We listened to a story which was deeply rooted with the topic, and I know many of you would have drawn parallel lines to your life. And after listening to the topic, self-victimization at personal life. So now let us come back to the present. And Vani, it is now your time to tell us what have you got for us this week.
This week, I would just like to dig down deeper into this topic, self-victimization at personal life,
Mhm.
just by looking at the main symptoms.
Okay.
So I would just go one after the other. The first and foremost symptom that I have experienced and seen is blaming others.
Mhm.
Can't agree more on this symptom because individuals with the victim mentality, they tend to blame others for their problems and challenges rather than taking responsibility of their actions. And when I say this, one thing that I remember and relate very closely as part of my upbringing again is I've heard elders tell us not to point fingers on others because when you
Mhm.
point fingers on others, one finger points others, whereas the other four fingers points at you. Uh, that's how true it is, right? People have said all these things with a lot of experience in their personal life. So blaming others, people with a victim mentality, they may believe that others are deliberately trying to harm or hold them back,
Mhm.
which might not be the actual case. So that's our first symptom.
Okay.
And the second, and one of the key things I've seen in many, particularly in a relationship, right? Irrespective of other parts. Of course, you
Mhm.
will see this, but I have seen a very deep-rooted symptom of this mainly in relationship, which is nothing but exaggerating the negative experiences. Uh,
Okay.
People with this self-victimization mindset tend to magnify the negative experiences or difficulty they face, making them
Mhm.
appear worse than they actually are.
Mhm.
And this exaggeration, what happens is it reinforces their belief that they're constantly being victimized. And that's what cages them into their walls, into their own zone that they have created for themselves.
Okay.
Because people tend to feel that what they go through, the pain is more when compared to the others. We never tend to talk about the perspective in which the other person have said. We don't empathize the situation they are in, etc. We always tend to say uh, they have a good life. It's only me
Oh,
who's suffering a lot. So that's where this exaggeration just cages them into that victim mode or victim mindset.
got it. Got it. Okay. Mhm.
And the third symptom that you could see, which I think I would have spoken about this even as part of the work life, is refusing to take responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Instead of acknowledging their role in certain situation, uh, people may deny any responsibilities for their actions and even refuse to consider their part in the outcomes.
Mm.
Um, I mean, a very common thing which is relatable to all, I believe, is uh, if you have seen people would say, you know what? I don't want to go and ask this to this person because whenever I go, this person always says a no. Why don't you go and talk about this? And you would have all experienced, and you might be experiencing now, particularly the teenage children. They might not go and ask certain things to their father. They always go via the mother. They wanted to take the softest route.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they are victimizing themselves or they have this victim mindset, but this doesn't just stop in that teenage, which I quoted as an example. This goes throughout their life. They always don't want to take responsibility in terms of improving their communication or improving how exactly they'll have to put forth things, rather than they wanted to take the easiest and shortest route just by blaming and then not taking responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fourth symptom is seeking sympathy and attention. Again, this is something very common. Any person in any part of the world would be able to relate. And I still remember what my pediatrician told me when I took my daughter when she was a newborn. If you see kids who tend to cry or they tend to shout and all those things when they wanted to seek attention, many a times the kids, when they're trying to get up or when they're trying to walk or when they're trying to turn and roll, they'll make all attempts, right? Even if you're leaving them there,
Yeah.
they will fall, but they will not mind about it. They'll try to stand up again. However, when they know that somebody is watching them, the moment they actually fall, they kind of cry or make that noise.
Spotlight attention.
Exactly. They kind of try to get the attention, that seeking attention. And exactly this is the child mindset, right? Victimization is all about child mindset, where people tend to seek sympathy and attention. They constantly do that, wanting to be comforted and reassured that they are not to blame for their circumstance.
Yeah.
And the fifth important, I would say, why they are caged is the symptom is difficulty in moving on. Rather than seeking solutions and finding ways to overcome challenges, they just get stuck in a cycle of self-pity and hopelessness. Remember our story from last week, Sarah?
Yeah.
What did she do? She actually started thinking that she's not capable enough. She's not there to do it. She cannot get all these stuff, which means they get into the cycle of self-pity and hopelessness, which is a vicious cycle, and they are unable to break that. That difficulty of moving on is another key symptom or factor which doesn't allow them to move away from self-victimization.
Okay.
And the next symptom is recurring negative patterns. Of course, when all these things are there, it has to be recurring, right? That's when it becomes a vicious circle. So self-victimization leads to repeating negative patterns in personal relationships and other aspects of life. This could be due to their unconscious reinforcement of the victim role. Because unconsciously, they have started believing, they have a very strong belief that it's just the circumstance, it's just others who are not letting them to win, just others who are not letting them to live, and all this stuff, right? It's very deeply engraved. And for all the negative patterns, for all that we are going through, the root cause or the starting point is the thoughts. And the first thought, when it becomes negative, of course, you end up in a situation where you kind of keep repeating it, and you end up in that negative pattern. It becomes a maze.
So I think it would be more like a domino effect. Your first thought process is negative, then the next few thought processes will also follow the same.
True, true, very true. And of course, that's where the difficulty of moving on also comes, right? You see how relatable the symptoms are.
Yeah.
And then the next important thing is feeling a lack of control. Of course, people, when they go through all these 6 symptoms that I've said so far, now we'll be able to understand why I say feeling a lack of control. because they don't have any control over their lives, or that external factors dictate their happiness and success is what they strongly believe. And that's where they feel like they lack control. For example, people who have a lot of challenges with respect to money, as I said, personal life constitutes different aspects, right?
Yeah.
Money, when people come and talk to me as a coach in terms of the money related issues, I see this. They feel that it's not in my control. It's because I'm not born in a very wealthy family. It's because I don't have a wealthy background. I don't have a supporting background. It's because I don't have a proper work. It's because my parents did not allow me to study. So you understand how things are going around, right? So they are completely out of control. They lack control and taking charge of how they could plan in a better way with what they have and where they wanted to go to. And because of all these things, what happens is they start resisting positive feedback, which I prefer to call it as feed forwards. They don't see that feed forward at all. They always see the back. They always see the past. They are just stuck there. So that's where they start resisting positive feedback, and it's not their fault. When they're receiving constructive criticism or feed forwards, the self-victimization tendency just says reject it, downplay. See, even this person whom I've known for so many years, my own parent, my own blood, doesn't appreciate me, doesn't acknowledge me. That's what they feel.
Okay.
Again, you remember Sarah, right, in our story, how she went against, where she did not feel or even listen to her own parents or friends or circle. And this, when all these happens and when they start resisting positive feedback, people tend to move away from them. And that's leading to the next symptom, which is isolating themselves from the group. They start isolating themselves. They feel like victims. They feel very withdrawn from social interactions and isolate themselves, which actually triggers or which actually multiplies the self-victimization and negative emotions again. And as they start isolating, the last stage or the last symptom is they have a negative outlook towards everything. This again, I remember talking about this in the work life as well, in terms of people cribbing that they don't get opportunities, but when the opportunity comes, they doesn't want to take. They have a very constant negative outlook on life. They always expect the worst to happen in any small thing that they do or they get. They believe that they will always be mistreated, can be prevalent in those with self-victimization tendencies. So these are the 10 symptoms or why people are stuck in the self-victimization mode in personal life.
Wow, I think that was an excellent take on the symptoms part towards the self-victimization at personal life. Let me just recap. Let me just list out the symptoms. The first one was blaming others. Second one, exaggerating negative experiences, refusing to take responsibility, seeking sympathy and attention, difficulty to move on, recurring negative patterns, feeling a lack of control, resisting positive feedback or feed forward, like what you always call that, isolating themselves, and finally, negative outlook. I hope I got the list correctly.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You are bang on. Uh, Getting the list is just the beginning, I would say, MJ. And I really, really appreciate every individual to go ahead and do a bit of introspection, just do a self-analysis, as my father says, towards the self-victimization in your own personal life.
Definitely, I think our listeners and whoever tends to listen to all these symptoms will do that. It's been an exhilarating session. I think it has given us everyone a lot to ponder over the next few days, definitely. So, listeners, I think whatever you have heard till now, make sure you um, uh, do the introspection, like what Vani said. So, I'm just going to go for the quote today. Positivity is not merely a mindset, it's the compass that guides us through life challenges, the fuel that energizes our dreams, and the magic that turns ordinary moments into extraordinary memories.
Excellent quote, MJ. Yes, definitely the fuel, it is a fuel that energizes our dreams. Can't agree more on that. I guess we need to be positive and that this is the need of the hour at this moment in each of our life. Don't we all agree, particularly after the COVID phase? Of course, it's a need of the hour. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, MJ, once again, for having me as your guest.
It's going to be a great pleasure always, Vani. So it is our pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. So, folks, it's been a pretty awesome podcast episode. And as always, we expect you to please drop in your comments, share this across to your known network, and help us to reach more people across the globe. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this fifth episode of our podcast. And we will be back in another 7 days' time, that's for sure. But the only thing that is going to be different is it's going to be a new topic, continuation to what that was spoken today, tips to overcome self-victimization in personal life. Till then, be good, do good, and stay good. Have a great rest of the week.